Welcome to the next episode of For the Sake of Heaviness. My name is Merciful Mike, and as always, I'm here with my co-host,
I am Butch Balich. Good evening, everyone.
Mr. Butch
Good
Ballich.
evening.
Tonight, we are joined by a couple of extra special guests. We've got Mr. Alex Winter. You've seen him on the Contrarians and a wide array of other shows where his insight has always been just amazing, no matter the topic. And we've got Tony Dio from Tony's Metal Emporium. Tony,
Tony,
Alex, thanks for joining us tonight.
Alex.
Thanks for the
But-
invite.
But our
Yeah, man, thanks for the
massive,
invite, guys.
awesome guest of honor tonight, Mr. Carl Canedy from
Yes.
not only the Rods, which we have to talk about the Rods, but Carl has a very storied past when it comes to production work and things that he's been involved with. And it's just a phenomenal story. If you haven't picked up his book, Tales of a Wild Dog, I highly recommend you do. It's a phenomenal book. It's a just so much great information's packed in here that
Yep.
it's hard to put down. So, Carl, thank you so much for joining us today.
I don't know what to say after that. Which, by the way, when you're doing this in your intro, don't block your face.
Well, okay.
You didn't do that.
It's
But,
me.
yeah.
Oh, Butch.
No one wants to see my face, Carl. I'm trying to help everyone out.
I feel the same way. So anyway, thank you for that great introduction. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. We appreciate you jumping on with us. So we will do our best not to talk over each other, but I know that we've all got questions and things to ask you. But Carl, I'm going to start off just with a real simple one. And just to kind of build the background, every time we have a special guest on, we like to get, their story of how they got into heavy music and what was the pathway to get you to where you are now. So like, those gateway albums or groups or, tell us all about young Carl and how you got into heavy music.
So in my children's book, I talk about I was 4.5. My mother took me to the American Legion wedding reception. I saw a tank outside. I was thrilled about that decommissioned tank, 4.5. Like, wow, that's cool. And then inside, I walk in and it's like the Hallelujah Singers and the lights are shining down on this red drum set. And VFWs, and a lot of times they have that little stage, it's barely raised, and it has the graded, the little railing, but there's an opening in the center. So anyway, the drums were in the center. I saw that and I was like, oh my God. Now and thinking about this after writing my children's book about my life story, I thought, what the hell? I didn't know anything about drums. I didn't know how they worked. I was just like watching the drummer, like, oh my God, that's amazing. So anyway, fast forward, begging for drums. My mother was poor. My father had died when I was 11. We had no money, but I begged and begged and begged. And I was practicing on this little wooden pad, which was basically the thinnest piece of rubber because couldn't afford a good one. And so I'd play and it'd be like playing on wood, even though it had rubber in the center of it, it was still like hitting wood. And I practiced that. And my cousin had been a drummer in the Upsetters, which was a funk band, did James Brown and so on. And he said, I think Carl has some talent. And so I was looking at drum sets and music stores, couldn't begin to afford them. So I found this one sleazy store that sold Japanese drum sets, and he would do them on a time, basis. So my mother was working at the post office in the window, and he said, let's go. And I went over. I'm like, this is great. I go over, order my mother, and she has to sign this installment contract for $365 for a drum set. It was probably worth $150. And that's where I got my first drum set. So now I'm playing, and I took lessons from this guy who told me I was crap. He says, you suck. And I'm paying him every week. And I'm not the brightest guy. But after a while, I'm like, well, wait, why am I'm bringing him money every week, and then he tells me I suck. So I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be coming here. So I stopped and I'm taking lessons from him and started just copying things. And I had a little Singer record player, and I would buy 45s. I'm sure I'm trying to do a demonstration with my fingers. And so what I would put it on, and then I'd have to listen, like, playing the drums, which are 10 times louder than that little 45. So that's what I would watch. I'd watch Ed Sullivan, and I would listen to these 45s that were on the radio. And just, I was just kind of making my way. And I realized that Hal Blaine was the drummer on most of those. So Hal Blaine was really my teacher. Then one day, I'm watching American Bandstand, and I see this band, these freaky guys, long hair, and I hear, no, and they're playing Summertime Blues, and it was Blue Cheer. And my little black and white TV, little speaker, was ready to explode. It was vibrating and ready to just fall off the table. And I went, like, that's it. That's how I want to play. And and I regret, because when I produced The Beast Is Back for Blue Cheer, I should have presented, um, oh, now I can think of his name, Paul Whaley.
Peterson.
Yeah, no, Dickie Peterson, but Paul Whaley. I should have presented Paul Whaley, the drummer, with a bill for all the cymbals and sticks I broke and cymbals I broke, because watching him play, and I started beating the shit out, can I say shit? Beating the shit out of my drums. All the, after that, that was it. It was done. Game on. And I should have brought him a bill, because of him, I spent a lot of my money on sticks and cymbals. So that was the gateway drug for me.
The hell of a gateway,
man.
too. Blue Cheer. Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was even going to ask you about that. I dug it out of the archives.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I have that on the wall.
We got to get a copy for you, Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a cool one. Yeah.
It was a fun
What was it
time.
like what was it like producing a band like that you just idolized?
Right.
It was really at first, Dickie Peterson, Dickie was a rock star to me. So, and then Paul Whaley was a big influence on me. And I used to listen to those Blue Cheer albums all the time. And then I remember that the producer, whatever his name is, I can't think of it, but they were so loud, they allegedly performed on the pier because no studio could contain the sound. And so I thought that was so cool. And then as I got further along and started learning about audio engineering, I thought, well, that was the dumbest freaking thing to do. So it must have sounded like shit. But I love the albums. And so at first I was a little awestruck of Dickie, but I realized they needed help and they trusted me. And so we worked really well together. And Paul was having some problems. Paul had some drug abuse problems. And so he'd have moments where he had a lot of self-doubt. So I tried to tell him that, tried to bolster his confidence. Like, look, you were a huge influence on me and a million other drummers, and you have a style. And he was like, I suck. I can't, do this and do that. And we had to do a lot of takes. And it's the only time I've ever spliced 2-inch tape. And I was terrified. But they had done a great take on the biker song on that album, Ride something.
Ride with me.
Ride with me. And they were having a hard time getting a good, complete take. It was, Paul was struggling with it. And in fact, that was when Paul Curcio, who was supposed to be you might even have a credit on there as co-producer, he was never in the control room. He didn't do any pre-production with him. I did all of it. And they hated him and God bless Chris Bubach. I thought Chris was such a nice guy. And but he put the talkback mic on because I was talking to them. I'm like, look, we'll do it again. Everything's cool. No problem here. And Paul Curcio comes into the room from his office where he had been the whole freaking time. And Chris has the talkback mic on. He goes, why are you doing this over and over? They can't play it. Just move on. They suck. Ooh. And the mic was on and the guys heard it. And, Paul was a mellow guy. Dickie, on the other hand, Bay Area badass. He came down and Paul locked himself in the office because Dickie was going to kick his ass. And it was like he was going to have a strongly worded email to him. He was going to kick his ass. And Paul locked himself in there. And then they told him, they told me, and of course, they made it clear to Johnny Z, they never wanted to see him in the control room again. They didn't want him to talk to them. He was out completely, which he was never in, but so anyway, that was the first time they had 2 really good takes. So the second half got really strong on one, and the first half was really strong. And I thought, let's just splice these 2 together. And it was like you're chipping a diamond, like you're trying to get it out of the bigger stone to make sure you don't ruin the whole thing. And I was terrified. But Chris, we found the spot, and Chris did an excellent splice, and you can't tell. They're 2 different takes.
Carl, how did Blue Cheer come to work with you and Megaforce? How was that relationship established?
Johnny Z was the man, and Johnny Z and I were really good friends from the day we met. And even till his death, he was going to write the forward to my book. And he's like, Carl, he was so sick. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Finally, I just said, John, let's take it off the table, man. It's not a problem, you know. But Johnny and I had been friends, and I knew Johnny. Johnny was always hustling. He was looking at bands, and I think once he was kind of established, I think Lucia maybe found him. But I really don't know the real reason. But I know that Johnny always had his ear to the ground for good music,
Sure.
and he was a Blue Cheer fan.
So that worked out pretty good.
Since Johnny Z came up, I'm fortunate that in a previous lifetime, I got to work with Johnny and Marcia, selling their one collection they had of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. So
I heard all about that.
I spent many nights with them and remember every second. So I want to ask about this project, The Lone Ranger.
Lone Ranger.
How did that come about? How did you feel about it then? How do you think it's held up? What's your thoughts on the Lone Ranger?
For a long time, nobody knew that was Johnny. It was a big mystery for people. And so when they proposed it to me, I thought, well, we're in the studio. The Rods are in the studio. And so we said, okay, then we'll do, we just worked that up, that little thing. And Johnny talked about what he wanted to do with the rap. So we did it. And then David had to go. David was out. He was out of town. He had to go back to Portland. So Duck McDonald came in and did the solo. So on one side, we did the rap, and then the other side, Duck just soloed through the whole thing and did a great job. So working with Marcia brought in the children's choir. Johnny and Marcia, I love them, and everybody who knew them. And you're saying here, you've worked with them. Everybody loved them. They're the greatest people. And I never heard Johnny say anything bad about anyone. He would always say, they're out for themselves, but it was never negative. Marcia the same way. But Marcia did a great job with the choir and brought in the little kids, and she directed them, and she was fantastic. And so, now I'm just glad that we kind of memorialized that. Like at the time, it was a little bit, wasn't sure if it was cheesy or not. Like it just seemed like it was Johnny. Johnny was a cool guy. He was a drummer, and so I'm glad we did it. I mean, I think in later life, as he neared the end, I think he kind of embraced that it was kind of cool that he had done it.
It's groundbreaking, man. It's the first rap metal album.
For better or for worse.
That's
started a genre.
That was a great poll, Alex. I haven't seen that in quite a while.
Yeah,
Carl,
man.
if you don't mind, if we could just hang out and talk about your production work a little bit longer. Another question that's always kind of floated around in my mind is, you were part of early Anthrax and Overkill, just, to name a few. But thrash metal as a genre hadn't really developed yet or revealed itself yet. So when you were in the production of these albums, sonically, what were you going for to really push these bands to the forefront? Because, it's thrash metal wasn't what we know it as now. It was in its infancy. So what were you going for?
You're absolutely right. And immediately when I heard Anthrax first band, it's like, these guys are great. Like I just fell in love with the music. I played it, some of the just the roughs that we had, the tracks, the basic tracks that we had, and for my friends, and they were, what is this? This is insect music. They hated it because they're old school, musicians. This was the changing of the guard. They didn't embrace it. They didn't get it, and they didn't want to get it. It's kind of like hair metal bands when the flannel guys showed up. They didn't want to know about it. I mean, it was happening. You couldn't stop it.
Right.
But when Seattle hit, that was it. And, no more guitar solos. And I had a lot of friends who had big pouts on their faces. But my friends, when they heard it, I had a bet with one. He said, I go, these guys are going to be huge. Like, oh my God, it sucks. How big do you think they'll be? I go, they'll be a gold or platinum act. And he said, no fucking way. They suck. It's insect music, which I don't know what insect music is. I should ask him. What is insect music? I don't know. But anyway, they didn't get it. They didn't get it. But for me, I got it, and I loved it. So what to answer your question, my goal was to make sure that they were tight. They were green in the studio. And that's to play that fast, you had to be really tight. So I worked with them. Every little thing we'd have to do punch-ins, but Scott was a quick learner. He's a phenomenal rhythm guitarist. He's a great writer. Charlie's a great writer. Charlie writes a lot of the stuff for Anthrax or did. And so, I mean, I worked with them and my goal was to get the power on tape, to capture what they were doing. And of course, I worked with them on arrangements, but overall, not a ton. But that was my goal. Try to capture what they're doing, make sure it's tight and punchy. And that's why Dan Spitz plays all the solos and Scott plays all the rhythms, because when they first tried to play together, Dan was really good, but he wasn't like Scott was tight. And so we just have to go with Scott, and you play. And Scott wasn't really a soloist, so that's how we divided that.
What did you think when Joey came in? What was the difference between Neil and Joey?
Well, I mean, this is a bit of a story. If you don't mind, I'll go off on a tangent.
Not at all.
I love Neil, and Neil went to France with us with Jack Starr, performed in Le Bourget Breaking Sound Festival. And Neil and I are good friends, and I've loved Neil, and I think he has a great voice, and I'm really glad that he's doing what he's doing and getting some recognition, because he kind of got blacklisted, I think, and wasn't fair. It was an unfair thing about Neil. But so Neil was great. They came back in. We were going to do Armed and Dangerous, and they came back in, and Neil was out, and they had I just looked at I have a demo of him singing, what's his name? I think he sang a Skid Row for a bit. Matt Fallon.
Matt Fallon. Yeah, I'm going to say Neil Fallon, Matt Fallon.
Matt Fallon. So we spent a week. And now these guys, were trying to get them to a major label, and we spent a week. And finally I said to the guys, he's not going to get you to a major label. And, once again, he was young and wasn't paying attention, kind of came in a little cocky, like, we've all been, like I still am. And, he just wasn't getting it together. Like I had to tell them, and to their credit, which is what I admire about those guys, they said, get Johnny on the phone. And I get Johnny on the phone. I tell him what's up. He says, put them on the phone. They go into the conference room. Literally 2 minutes later, they go, John wants to talk to you. I go up. I pick up the phone and go, hey, John, what's up? Put him on a bus, and he hangs up. So now we're in the studio in the middle of this with no singer. It was the right move for them, but they had no singer. Now, what are we going to do now? So Andrew Duck McDonald, I called Andrew because he had actually found Rick Cottle he sang on the Rod's Hollywood album. And so he goes, this guy, Joey Belladonna, who's singing singing Journey. He goes, he's really great, but he sings Journey. He doesn't know anything about metal. So he gave me his number. I called him. And I think his dad answered the phone. I can't remember. I think Joey we were just talking about that recently. And so Joey came in. John and I worked with him because the music was fast. And like you were just pointing out, it's like, what the hell is this? Like, now he's got to sing this, but it's fast. And you got to know these changes. So it took him a little bit to kind of catch on to that. In the meantime, the guys are by the door, because the way Pyramid Sound is, the desk is elevated. And so there's a door behind that leads to a bathroom, which then leads to offices. So they're all in there with the door cracked open, so Joey can't see them in there, and they're all listening, of course. And after working with Joey for an hour, they were like, "You're in." They loved it, and it was interesting because, and this is why, and no offense to John Bush, no diss of any kind. I think he's a great singer. But to me, he didn't really elevate Anthrax the way I thought Joey did. And the way Joey elevates the band is that he doesn't fit the band. He's bringing a whole different style of singing, and that's what makes it work to me. He's the voice of Anthrax for me. And it's because he's just not a typical metal singer. And he's a great frontman. So that's what happened. And it was a scary moment when they had no singer, but I thought the balls on those guys to say, you don't think he's working? Johnny, and Johnny's the same way. Johnny, they go, well, I put all this money in already in the studio. We got to finish the album, the record. You got to do it. He's like, put him on a bus and hangs up. Like, so, I mean, they were on the same page. It's got to be right or move on. So
Right.
that's my long-winded version of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think I remember Scott Ian saying in an interview once where when they heard Joey sing, like he came in and he sang some Journey and there's something. And they said, yeah, if we get this guy, we'll be the biggest band in the world because they just loved his voice so much.
They loved it. Yeah, absolutely.
I've
You
just
could
always
tell-
imagined he walked in and sang that beginning to Old Sherry, should have been gone. Maybe that's what he's saying, that opening line.
Yeah, I don't recall him singing Journey. They knew he was singing Journey, but I don't believe he sang Journey. But that's my recollection.
Yeah.
So everybody's different.
I mean, it
I've always
really
liked
did.
Joey too. Sorry.
Yeah, I
Butch,
mean,
go
it
ahead,
really
go ahead.
did. No, I was just gonna say it really did set the band apart. I mean, there were singers
Mhm.
that were vocalists in thrash bands that were, like Bobby Blitz certainly isn't like a growler or anything, but Joey had such a melodic voice, paired
Very.
with the heaviness. I think it was really like one of the key things that
It is
know,
once that
launched that
voice
band.
caught up to the tempo. That was great. That was
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
fantastic comparing.
Absolutely.
Blitz is so great.
He's awesome.
He is.
Oh, yeah.
He's never changed. I was a guest drummer for this band, Held Hostage, which I'm playing guest drummer for them, opening for Skid Row Thursday. And so I was playing that at Metal Allegiance, and I see Bobby, and he just comes up and gives me a hug. It's like we hadn't had seen each other yesterday. He doesn't change one bit. Still Bobby.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So the Rods, you guys have been described as, blue collar metal, one of the most criminally underrated power trios for sure. So kind of talk us through the genesis of the Rods and how it all started. And then we can kind of go through the timeline a little bit because I know we've all got some questions.
So I had known David because I was in a band called Raw Meat, which is probably one of the worst names of any band, right? I mean, we're talking like Raw Meat, if it were a band like Guar, it'd be perfect,
Yeah.
right? This was a band that was doing Elton John. It was doing all this top 40 stuff, and it was called Raw Meat. I was like, what the hell? It had previously been Brian's Idols, and they'd recorded for RCA. But when Brian switched it to Raw Meat, and so there we were doing top 40, Steely Dan, Elton John, Raw Meat. So we rehearsed in this Finnish garage, and Elf rehearsed in the house. And
No kidding. Wow.
Elf had been together with Gary Driscoll. Just what a phenomenal drummer, and he was a great friend to me. But he had a little 3-piece kit. The bass drum was up against the wall, like that. They'd been together. They knew what was up. Gary practiced all the time, but that's how they rehearsed. Very quiet, very. Which is hard to believe. Rock was quiet because with an acoustic guitar, rock is deafening. But somehow they made that work, and so I knew those guys because we'd see each other all the time at rehearsal. So then later on, David was working with Joey DeMaio, and so I went to a music store with Brian. Bought a music store. Brian from Raw Meat, it was Brian's Idols. He had a music store, so I was in that store, and Dennis Dragone, who I had worked with in my band Colacus, we roomed together. He was our light guy for years. Denny comes in. Now, Denny and I had shared room. We roomed together for years. So we knew each other's secrets. We knew, like, there was no Mr. Canedy involved in that crap. He comes in and he says, Mr. Canedy, Mr. DeMaio and Mr. Feinstein would like to see you outside. And I thought, oh, okay, we're gonna have a fight. What's going on? So I go outside. I get in the back seat of the car, and like, hey, David, hey, Joey, and Joey turns around and he goes, "Do you want to keep playing with boys?" or do you want to play with real men?
Jesus.
And so that's like to me, that was the Amway question. If I could tell you guys how to make $1 million, would you want to hear it? What's the answer? Nope, not interested in the slightest. How can I make $1 million? No, I don't want to know. I'm good just being who I am. So of course the answer was, yeah, I do. So we started rehearsing, wrote some songs, and it was awesome. I have to say it was awesome. But it just didn't go anywhere for some reason. And I had gone to see the band Thunder. And I remember going with the bassist from Colossus, and we're sitting in the theater in Auburn. And there was every version of every amplifier ever made. Was two guitars, bass and guitar, so connected that the hum. And I always wore earplugs. All these years I've worn earplugs, and I said to my bass player, "Their hum is louder than we play as a band." And we were both like, "Oh my God, this is going to be unbelievable." So now my friend Dave Galutz is the drummer, and he hit hard, like he was crazy. They fire up, and this is what I hear, this roar from the bass and guitar, and this is what I see from the drums. And he's sweating, he's playing, and I don't hear anything. There are no drums at all. That's how loud they were. He was so drowned out by the bass and guitar. So anyway, after that happened, then Joey asked me to join Manowar. And David and I had started the Rods at that point. And that was 79 when that happened. Wow. And then it came to a point where I had done the demo. The Rods were signed to Arista, and I had done the demo with Manowar. And it came to the point of, choose your sides. And I just didn't think I'd look good in a loincloth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, I've had a lot of compliments when I wear my thong to the beach, or at least comments anyway, like you should be covering up and get off the beach. But, it's, I just didn't think it was working for me. And I was a songwriter, in the early days, I wrote a lot of songs for the Rods. And I knew that with Manowar, I wouldn't be able to, but I did know, and I have recordings of it, excuse me, from the rehearsals. And it was really clear that they were going to be huge from day one. I mean, I knew what I wasn't sticking with because it was just phenomenal. And Ross, we all worked so well together. And, and Ross, rest in peace, Ross was a great guy. And I think he was a huge contributing factor to Manowar, taking nothing away from, once he left the band. But to me, the greatest songs of Manowar, we lumped them together. The majority of them were in the early days with Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting back to the question, as David and I started, we both had songs. My roommate's brother, and I was friends with the family and the brother, Chris Bubach, who went on to record the first Metallica album. And we started writing and rehearsing. We were building cabinets that we both still have, and these Tio cabinets and the Marshall 412s cabinets that David has. I think he has like 28 or 30 of them now. And so during the day, we would start at Al Falso's, the Rod Father, the greatest guy, and above his music store. And we would start at 10 a.m. and we were poor. And he would go, "I want some coffee." And he always had money. I'm like, "Al, you're going to get killed." He would pull out a wad like this of money. And I go, "Al, you can't have that kind of cash. You're going to get rolled." He goes, "Got to have it for UPS guys." I'm like, "Okay." And he would peel off money, and then he would go, "Would you guys get me some coffee?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure. We'll run up." It was just across the street. And he goes, "Get yourself some coffee. And, if you want a donor, so get yourself." And he didn't need any coffee. He was doing that to be kind to us. So we would wrap up about noon or so, 12:30. We would go home, and we would come, and then we'd come back to my house, continue working on things. I bought what am I trying to say? For a press for the silk screen, or a press for T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that. So we started making our own shirts. And the early ones, like, you couldn't get white, or black. So we had like blue and white, like the worst, like anti-metal shirts, like powder blue shirts. Here's my heavy metal shirt. I'm badass. So we would do those, work on our gear. And then at 6 o'clock at night, we'd go back to Falso Music, and we rehearsed till 9. We did that 5 days, 6 days a week.
Wow.
Until we had enough material. So, and then we started going to Fredonia, because immediately we started recording because Chris was a junior at that time and he got free studio time. So we would drive to Fredonia, and then we started playing gigs. And in between gigs, and I have it in my calendar book, I think it was 63 days, we never came home. We would either go to Fredonia to record, and sometimes we'd have to hang out like till nighttime. So we'd be just hanging around during the day. And then we'd play gigs, and then we'd go back to Fredonia. And we did that for 63 days straight. And we were living on $5 a day. And Steve Starmer, our bass player, smoked. So out of that $5, he had to buy cigarettes. And I still don't know how he did it, but he did, because we didn't have any money. And so that was it. And Chris recorded us for free. And I think at the end of the session, we had to buy a $1,200 delay line for the school for Fredonia. And but that was, it took a while to get that done. And it was a great experience. And Chris, he got when he graduated, he was the only one who had his class project, senior project, signed to a major label. So it was great. So those were the early days for us, how we started.
And that was the self-titled one, this version.
And what's funny about that is, like, I think David's a photographer. That came later. But the Rock Hard album with Steve Starmer on it, actually. And so that was, I think David took that picture. David's a photographer and an artist, very talented. But I think we took that like at his house, or maybe we had one of his friends photography. But anyway, we had that made. We pressed it ourselves. So I started a label, Primal Records. So that was look at that, the beard. So we started doing that, and I had it manufactured at Texas Tape and Records in Texas, in Houston. And so there was a German woman, and I'd gotten to know her because we had done some other things later on. But anyway, we had posters that they would give you, these little posters. And I said, oh, you know what? Let's do the tagline, 12 inches of hard rock and roll. So she crosses it out. She sends me the sample poster, and she crosses it out, 2 inches of hard rock and roll. Now this is a woman who was a really straight-laced German woman who I didn't think even had any humor in her body. And suddenly I get that, and I burst out laughing. I called her. I go, oh my God, that's the best. 2 inches of hard rock and roll. So once we got picked up by Arista, which was another journey, which we were signed to Areola in Germany. But then that imploded, and Arista picked it up. And then Arista decided, Mike Bone was our A&R guy, and Mike Bone and Mike Lembo, they decided what songs we wanted to keep, and they thought there were 2 more songs. So they gave us Nothing Going On in the City, which is a killer choice, Ace in the Hole. And so we went into the studio to record those 2 songs. And so Steve Starmer is on that first album, except for those 2 songs. Gary Bordenero plays bass on those. Yes, and that was cool. That photographer was in Rochester. Peter found him, and he took us to some cool places like that wall. Like, how many bands are stood in front of a wall? But that was a pretty cool wall to stand in front of.
Yeah, great shot.
Yeah, he captured it.
Alternate shot on the 12-inch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another part of that story is because I would performed on the Man of War demo that night. We were all up all night partying. And they picked me up in the morning. David and Gary showed up outside the hotel. And so I was literally up all night. And I look at that and I think, oh my God, what the hell are you thinking? Up all night. And I don't drink or do drugs, but it was party night.
Hell yeah. I got
awesome.
a bit of a 2-part question for you. The first one is, those early gigs, how do you feel the live reception was? Do you feel like you were received, well enough to where you thought the audience was getting it, what we were doing? And then the second part of that kind of elaborates down the road is the Rods have always been known for their live show. And you guys put out the energy and volume and tightness of a band that's, you know, a 4 or 5 piece, let alone you guys being a trio. So
Thanks for
can you,
that.
yeah, I mean, I've read plenty of articles and interviews, and that has always been one of the main points that's brought up is that the rods live were just larger than life. And people were always amazed at how you guys were able to craft that live sound. So, I mean, I guess starting with like the earliest gigs, how did those go? What was the reception like? And then how did you guys just harness that energy and push through with that amount of power?
Well, as I used to say, we don't count things off, you know, one, two, we just say ready, set, go. Because my analogy is the train leaves the station and it doesn't stop till it gets to the next destination. So it's on 10 the whole time. We never dumbed it down. We never dumbed it down. We performed as if we were performing in front of 10,000 people, even if there were 2 people. And when we first started, I remember playing this place, the Arcade in Ithaca, New York. And so we start playing, and I would say there were 25 people, and it was a very echoey room. And so we start playing, and by the end of the first set, the roadies were there, some girlfriends were there, nobody else. They were gone. We chased them out. And after we packed up, I went outside, and there was this guitar tech. His name was Drew. And Drew's shit faced. He's outside the building, like squatting down, leaning against it. And he's like, Carl, what are you doing, man? The 60s are dead. This is shit, man. You're a great drummer. You're gonna ruin your career. Why are you doing this, man? And he's going off on me, and I stop and I go, wow. Is he right? Maybe what? Maybe he's right. And then I look at him, I think, this is drunk fucking guy leaning against the wall, giving me career advice. And I'm thinking about taking it. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. We'll just carry on for a while. And it took time. And little by little, we would introduce, because we had originals already recorded, we'd start doing an original. And we'd start playing places, and we'd start getting some people started to catch on. And little by little, the crowds got bigger. And then I remember when we played in Cornell, and these people had a bakery and a bar. I remember that the crowds were getting bigger until it was just jammed. It was wall to wall people. And he would give us bread, fresh bread. We'd all be like hugging our loaves of bread because we were still poor and starving, and go back to the hotel and we'd be eating. So one night I said, hey, I'd like to get another date on the books now. He goes, I can't hire you anymore. I go, what? What's wrong? He goes, the bar is doing no business because all they do is stand and watch you, and it's jammed, and nobody can get to the bar. The people who want to drink, and none of the other people want to drink and just stand and watch you. And I went, ah. So that was, except we loved playing there. We loved that couple who owned it. But that was a disappointment, but it also signaled that we were catching on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. The strong point of the band that sold me on the rods originally. My introduction to the rods was probably, I think I heard "Let Them Eat Metal" on a college station that I used to
That
record.
was mine too.
Yep.
You know,
Oh.
but the first rods record I
let me just
ever
interrupt
got
on that.
was the live
The
album.
live one. Let me
And
interrupt. You guys
I
got into
loved
that Let Them Eat Metal because of Sherry on the cover. So let's be
I
honest about that.
Well, I hadn't
wanted
seen the cover. I never
Yeah,
saw
I
the
hadn't-
cover till years later.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
I
didn't?
hadn't-
Oh, okay. I
Yeah, I
apologize.
just heard the song "Let Them Eat Metal," and I was in the store one day and I ran across this live album and I was like, I'm gonna check this out, and I just fell in love with it, man. It's just the high energy. It's just such a great show. It's just great performance of those songs and stuff, man.
Oh, that's great.
And I
love
was
my
glad when the CD reissue came out, it had more songs on it.
Yeah, and I love my snare drum sound on that album. It was like John Bonham, and I loved it. I used to use and I'm using it now with Held Hostage. I used it last show a few weeks ago, and opening for Vinny Appice's Sabbath Nights with Jim Green. And but back then I would use duct tape all around the outside of the drum because things weren't available then like they are now. And that's how I got. And I used a heavyweight drum head, and I used my 6.5, the Superphonic John Bonham snare drum. And I love this. So on that live album is one of my favorite sounds captured. was hard to get in the studio.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's the
terrific.
cover he's mentioned in there for Let Them Eat Metal.
Carl, I remember seeing that. I'm like Tony. I'd heard it. There were a couple of local college stations in the Lehigh Valley area that used to play metal, where I got introduced to God, like everything back then. That between that and Metal Shop on WYSP
Metal
out of
Shop, yeah,
out of Philadelphia, so I'd heard the song first, but then of course when I saw the record in the stores, I was like what 13 or 14, and my buddies and I were like, wow, like did the
Check this
cover
out.
did that cover
Well,
give you guys any trouble at the time? Did you have trouble with it?
it did. It was on. I don't know. You probably don't remember Phil Donahue, but Phil Donahue had a talk show.
Yeah.
And the PMRC was on talking about all these, how heavy metal music, you're going to hell and Satan's music. And that they have that cover up there. It's on you can see it on the floor, and they had that, but they had that up. And so, yeah, we got some flack about that. But Sherry, the story with Sherry is, I was like, Let Them Eat Metal. I wish somebody had a shiny silver dildo we could put in a banana peel, right? Because it's all tongue in cheek. And she goes, I have a gold one. And I went, okay. So now she goes to the photo shoot, and she and I were really good friends, and she was with David. And she comes back and she's like, she goes, she had pubic hair at the time. I don't know where we are now with that, but she had pubic hair at the time. And she goes, Carl, Asaph Merker was this really old guy. And she has bruises on her leg. She goes, and I didn't realize I had a hole in my underwear. So the pubes are coming out. And the guy's like, she goes, he was unfazed. She did all these poses, and she goes, he was unfazed. And so really funny, but she was like kind of embarrassed, like, because of the old guy. But anyway, it was pretty funny, but she came through for us.
Well, we're talking about album covers. That is one of my favorites of all time. And I'm also a big, band mascot guy, which the Cerebus eventually you started using over and over again. What was the choice behind that?
That's Les. What's his name? Les. I can never remember his name.
Oh, Les Edwards.
Les Edwards. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was actually on a plane coming back, and when we started the Iron Maiden tour, my mother was sick. She was dying, and everybody was like, she'll be here when you get back from the Maiden tour. And of course she wasn't. She took a turn for the worse. So I went home for a few days, and after she died. And so I'm on a plane, and our manager shows it to me. And despite my incredible sadness, I'm looking at the overlays through the window of the plane, and it was unbelievable. It was like 3 dimensions. It just came to life. I was in awe of how incredible that the cover was. Yeah. So back then they had the color separation, so there were transparencies, and that's why it was like a Viewmaster. It just looked incredible. And in Brazil, they told me when we played there that the Wild Dogs is not associated with us. That cover is not associated with us so much as it is just a universal symbol in the metal.
Yeah. Power trio and this 3-headed beast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would always bust Gary, like when we'd sign, we'd go, Gary, you signed the cute one.
Yeah, Too Hot to Stop. That was an anthem for sure.
Oh yeah.
From that
I
record.
thought there were some good songs on Wild Dogs. I wasn't happy with the production overall. We've remastered it now, so it's more palatable to me. But we had this engineer, and of course I can think of his name in a second. Very unhappy with him. Now, I play pretty hard. Like no one's ever asked me to play harder. And he had me, I bent bass drum beaters. My drum heads were tuned so loosely. My drum tech was like, what the hell? And all I could do was slam the drums. There was no finesse like the first album. And what is his name? I never want to forget that.
I just looked at it.
Oh, Martin
Pearson.
Martin Peterson. Martin Peterson, yes. And he didn't get it. The guitar sound sucked. I was really unhappy with the whole thing. And he mixed it. And he was just a jerk. But he did bring me Paiste hi-hats because he was from Switzerland, and a 22-inch Paiste ride that I still have, and it's awesome. So, I'm happy about that. And I feel bad that my drum tech was sleeping with his girlfriend while we were recording, but I had no control over that.
That's not your fault, Carl.
It's not my fault. I would, I wouldn't wish it on him, and I didn't even know about it until after they'd been friendly for quite a while.
Sure.
Yeah, the guitar sound is a lot better in the raw, and you and Babe produced that one.
Chris Bubach. And we went into the studio for that. That was truly a demo. It's one of the fan favorites. We went in, there was drums there. I had to go into the closet. I found two, mixed up drums. Like I put a double bass kit together from different drums, two of them. David has Marshall, Gary had his rig. And we were up all night. We just did these songs we had written, and that was how it went. And we're almost no overdubs. I mean, the vocal, we did the basic tracks, and then they sang. And very quickly, and David threw some guitar solos on it. It was done in like 48 hours or something, mixed and done. And then our manager at the time comes in, and we're up 48 hours, and he takes a picture in our face, like here for the cover. Like, I don't know where the rush job was. I don't get the foresight. Let's put a really shitty picture of you guys looking exhausted. Great idea. So he goes, it was so bad. I think Mike Varney said it was so bad that he had to put a color tint on it. That's why it's red.
Yeah.
You guys are looking beat.
But the fans, that's one of the favorite albums.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it captures, it was live, and I think it captured the band at that point, like coming off the road and new material that we believed in.
Hey, you mentioned Iron Maiden, and the Rods were the opening band for some pretty pivotal tours for a couple of bands. That was Number of the Beast tour that I think you were talking about, correct?
Yes.
So, and it's my own guilty pleasures because I love hearing about the early stories. But do you have any particular memories that you can share from like those early tours with Maiden and Priest and some of those other bands that you guys went out with?
Ozzy was great. Ozzy was great because when we were doing the dates, think we did 3 dates with Ozzy, but they would tell you, okay, stay in your dressing room and don't open your door till we come and knock, because Ozzy would pace the hall. So nobody could look at Ozzy. He was pacing the hall before the show. And, we thought that was really quirky, but, on the other hand, that's your ritual. You got to psych yourself out.
Sure.
And Ozzy, I love Ozzy, as does everyone. And, I get it. Like, some people could look at it as like, how much focus does it take to do? Go crazy, people. But it does, because if you watch Ozzy when he does warm-ups, he was a great singer. He was hitting intervals. He trained, obviously Ozzy went out a little bit, maybe a little bit over-enhanced, as we'll say, over time, some of the shows. But in terms of him as an artist, the guy was phenomenal when he was not enhanced. And even when he was still great. It was like, this is the guy you want to hang out with. So, but with Iron Maiden, those guys, Bruce Dickinson, that was the first tour with Bruce Dickinson. They greeted us, brought us champagne the first time. They were really nice. They told us that Judas Priest had been really not nice to them. Their crew had really treated them really poorly when they opened for them. So much so that sometimes the crew would have to take the gear off the front of the stage into the crowd. That's a nightmare, and so they were like, we won't do that to you. And they didn't. They were really great. And so it was a really great tour. I used to sit behind Clive. He was way up, and he'd look down and smile, and I'd be watching him. He was a great guy. And let me see who else we do. Motorhead. Lemmy was hanging out after the show, and Motorhead was the loudest band I've ever heard. They were so freaking loud. Oh my God. I was like, wow. I've heard loud bands, but not like that. They were so loud. And after the show, like I said, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, and I'm also a clean freak. Like, if the house is on fire, I have to take a shower before I leave the house. So we're outside now after the show, and Lemmy's got his beer, and he's got his arm around me, all sweaty. And I mean, you love Lemmy. Was the greatest guy. And he's sloshing his beer. You want a drink, mate? I'm like, no, I'm good. And he's sloshing it and drinking, and it's great. It was just fun, but he's sweating on me, and the tour manager's looking at me behind Lemmy, so Lemmy can't see, and he's just laughing because he knows I'm dying inside. But I love Lemmy, so it's like I'm not going to say anything. But anyway, trying to think of some other. Oh, Judas Priest. Judas Priest were great. We had it was a great time, and we had seen them. We'd opened for them in Albany at what was the Palace Theater, I think. And I remember looking down. We had a window overlooking the stage, and I remember we came in and they had we were starving, poor musicians, right? When we got that, Cedric Kushner was the promoter, and so they bring in this tray, and it has rolls on it, and it has pimento loaf and bologna and mystery meat on it. And I'm like, wow, we're starving. I'm like, you don't want to touch that. That's Priest's catering. We were so afraid. And then they came in and was like, that's the dog food. You guys can have that. We thought that was Priest catering, like all this slop, pimento loaf, which I used to love, but we were afraid to touch it because we thought that was Priest catering, which was probably lobster and steak in their dressing room. We got bologna. So we and that show was really an eye opener for us because we didn't know about monitors. We were, we basically were playing clubs. We didn't really use a lot of monitoring. And on a big stage, you can't hear. So David starts, and I hear, and Steve Starmer and I are looking at each other like, okay, we're supposed to come in. And it was probably a song like Power Lover or something that, was rhythmic, and that's what we heard. So it was a disaster, a disaster. And Cedric Kushner, that's why Steve was let go, unfortunately, because he was the greatest guy, and he was a really great bass player. But Cedric Kushner was like, you got to fire those guys. David, like, you're great, but those guys suck. And David's like, okay, well, I don't think Carl sucks, so we'll carry on. But it was always interesting, doing those shows. And then eventually we got hip to the whole monitor thing. Oh, and then we were playing arenas with Foghat. And our manager didn't know to tip the monitor people because that's their supper hour.
Yeah.
So if you want to pay them, they'll stay. But if you don't want to pay them, they're going to eat. And so I look over at the monitor board. I'm like, gotta turn up the vocal. And there's nobody there. I'm like, what the hell? There's nobody there. So the first show we did in the arena and with opening for Foghat, with no monitors at all. So just like open, it was brutal. And the theater in Albany was a theater. This was an arena, 10,000 seats, and no monitors. Rough.
Yikes.
But eventually we got it together. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing those stories.
I know, man. It's great. I know. So you guys were inactive for a long time and started getting your feet back into biz again. I guess a little over a decade ago. Putting out some new Rod stuff. You did your Canedy record under the Canedy name.
Mhm.
I saw you guys in 2014 at Defenders of the Old, and that's the first time I ever got to see you. Got to meet you guys. It was a dream come true, man, because just a longtime fan. You guys were so cool to all us fans and stuff, signing all our stuff. And but yeah, I'm glad to see you guys back in business again because you've put out some solid stuff over these last few albums.
Thanks for that. I agree. And it's been 15, 16 years. Like we raised our families, and then it just fell back into place. David had the album. I can see it with John West singing.
Oh, you mean the what was it? Something wish.
Third Wish.
Third Wish. Yeah.
But
yeah.
David had the itch again, and we played a benefit for Alf also. And it was like I didn't want to do it if we were going to be a facsimile of what we were. But as it turned out, the minute we hit the first chord, we're like, okay, we're back. Nothing's changed. and we still have the same energy and drive. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's been over 15 years. I think we went to Norway over 15 years ago, and we've been doing it ever since. But we had a big, David did 2 solo albums. I did my solo album. And then I did the Canedy Band album, which is, what is that? I can't think of the name.
Headbanger.
Warrior. Headbanger
the
was my
second.
solo album. Yeah, that was mine. And then the Canedy was actually a group effort. So, and now I have an album with Billy Sheehan playing bass, Mike from the Canedy Band singing, great vocalist, and John Hahn, who's a Mike Varney discovery. He's a shredder, but he's a great composer. And so we've got this album, which they're just waiting for me to render the drum tracks. We have 3 songs mixed, and we'll have that album done. Get it ready to release that. So I'm excited about it. It's one of the best projects. Plus, Billy came in and played on the Thrasher album, and I've loved his bass playing since when we were at Fredonia with Chris all those years ago. I remember them telling us about this bass player who plays classical music on the bass. At that time, I was like, classical music on the bass? How do you do that? And that was Billy Sheehan telling us about how great he was. But Billy's a really great guy. I'm so glad we got to do this album, and I'm thrilled.
Yeah, amazing player.
He is, and a great guy. Which when I growing up in Elmira, all the musicians were most of the musicians would come out and they'd do suck. They'd stare at you like, suck. Like it was like, oh, okay, thank you. It's the same, not quite like the Seattle vibe that those bands had. Like, oh, if we get signed, we'll bring you along and all that. It was not like that. And so then when I started taking lessons from Carmine Appice, I realized that, wow, Carmine, he's my hero. He's a totally cool guy, so chill and so humble. And I'm like, wait, he's a rock star and he doesn't act like those dicks in Elmira. What am I missing? And then when I took lessons from Tony Williams, same thing. Here's this guy who's phenomenal, and he's so totally mellow. Like we had long discussions about composition and music, and it really helped me with producing Tony Williams because we talked about the pulse and how I would always try to find the pulse of a song. Like looking at it, every song has a heartbeat, and you got to find that rhythm so that the tempo is right, so the song breathes and is powerful. So, but anyway, I realized after that you don't have to be a dick. So
that's true.
I was kind of hoping I could work my way into being a big dick, but it didn't work that way.
Carl, is there an aspect of being involved in music that do you prefer producing or composing or recording in the studio or performing live, or is it like you like all of them equally, or is it like where are you most comfortable in that whole scheme of things?
From day one, I started playing guitar right almost as soon as I played drums. So, and I'd kind of bang chords on the piano, but I was always like at the end of the day when I couldn't practice anymore, I would pick up the guitar. So, but I've always had a penchant for arrangements. So that's something that's been easy for me. It's something I've always loved. And so, and then I always wanted to, my girlfriend went to Elmira College and she could take out these mono recorders, and then my friend's girlfriend could shake one out. So I would take the two of them and I would play the guitar with some of the worst songs I've ever written. I have about 100 of those I've written on piano, the worst songs, Guinness Book of Records. I need to call Guinness people so they can come and evaluate the 100 songs I've written that are horrible. But anyway,
send them to us, Carl. We'll evaluate them.
Okay. I have a notebook that I look at lyrics, and it's filled. But I look at like page 1, page 2, and then I'm like, okay, you got to either shut this book, you're gonna hang yourself. But anyway, so I would strum this into this mono recorder, and then I would play it back, and record it to the other recorder with a crappy, cheesy microphone, and then I would bounce it back over. And by the time I had a few tracks going, what you heard was, you didn't hear any music, it was just tape noise. But that's how I learned to start engineering, and So I love producing. I love working and helping people get their ideas. I love working on sound. Like I have my little studio here that I record all my stuff with. And so I love that. But like Shmulik Abigal said, and he was right. I thought at first I thought, screw you, man. I'm more than just that. But he said, you're a drummer. And he's right. When I'm on stage and everything is going well and I'm playing, that's like breathing to me.
Yeah.
So, but I do love producing, and I do love working on arrangements and helping artists find what the sound is. So
very cool.
And I was surprised when I did Headbanger. I did a lot of interviews, and what I found was that half of the people knew me as a producer, and the other half knew me as a drummer.
Sure.
But they didn't know both sides. And I thought, wow, so Headbanger served a purpose.
Yeah. Carl, I got a question real quick concerning you playing live, and it just kind of piggybacks off of Tony a little bit because you guys are still out there, still playing. You're playing at still a very high level, high caliber. But is there a particular song in the Rod's catalog that maybe isn't in the set list at this point, but is there one that you find to be the most physically demanding? So like when you know it's coming up, you're like, okay, I gotta hold my breath through this one or something like that. Is which song is the most demanding for you in the live situation?
I have to say that over the years, I've learned to balance things. I've learned better technique. So none of those songs I'm afraid of anymore. Like I used to be, what was the song? I had trouble with it in the studio. White Lightning.
Okay.
And I was like, oh God, I got to play that double bass that fast all the way through the song. Like, come on. But not anymore. Now I'm good. Even though I'm much, much older, it's still the technique and learning where to lay back and play and, So I'm fortunate that I am able to play still at a high level. So, and I'm grateful every time I play because, every show could be the last now. So I'm like, cherish every bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Carl,
go
ahead, Alex. Sorry.
I just real quick. I'm a big lyrics guy, and these guys brought me in to ask the hard hitting question. So, big ones. What's the inspiration behind that song?
Wait 1 second. Is that a picture of who is that? Is that Lemmy?
Well, that's Lemmy, Saint Lemmy.
Saint Lemmy. Okay, because I'm thinking you're going to ask me the hard hitting questions, but I couldn't tell if that was Jesus or Lemmy, and I thought,
they're one and the same to me.
Trick question.
Yeah.
So
Lemmy is God.
What song are we talking about?
So I was just joking. I was just saying, what's the inspiration behind big ones?
Great big fake ones.
Yeah.
It was a joke. It was a joke because you're always hearing about women, and you see these shows. My daughter was watching some shows, and these vapid women with big breasts and just totally brain dead. And so that was like, I'm just going to write a song, great big fake ones. And that's what I did. And I thought it was really funny. Not everybody got the joke. So, but I did. I thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
Taken in a humorous context, I thought it was funny, but taken in it like, oh my God, you're a misogynist context, not so much.
Carl,
that was the hard hitting question. That was hurtful.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little.
So I saved it towards the end. I didn't want to start with that.
I appreciate that. Kind of warmed me up. Which, by the way, I feel so much better now since I started this interview. And I wanted to say something for a plug for myself. My book, Tales of a Wild Dog, is going to be in Audible. Is it Audible? Yeah, Audible. What's the
That's Audible's right. Yeah, that's
audiobook. Yeah.
Did you narrate it yourself, Carl?
I did.
Nice.
Awesome.
And that was hard. That was hard, in all honesty, because the first part of it's emotional for me, and I would just choke up. Like it took me a while to get through that first part. It was bringing back memories that are not pleasant.
Is there a date on that, Carl, when that might be released for public consumption?
We have everything in place. I have to do the last update, and I'll probably do that. My voice isn't good today, but I'll do it the next couple of days, and then it'll be submitted, and it'll be, good to go. It's all been rendered other than that last piece.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
great book.
what's the I'm always curious about, I read a lot. I don't do audiobooks very often, but I'm always, since I'm around them all the time, I'm always just curious, like when you see when the Audible version comes out, like how long does that process take, like to get that together to where you're satisfied with it?
Um, the audiobook wasn't too bad. I mean, it took a while because I'm recording it myself. So instead of having somebody
Gotcha.
punch me in, I'm like, oh, I got to go back and do it. It was a pain in the ass. But it took a while. But the book was when Phil said, "Listen, I'll transcribe your recordings," and I thought, great, then you're the guy, because two other people had wanted to do it. One was in Russia, and he knew a lot about my career, more than I did. And excuse me, but then we talked, and I'm like, between the time difference and the language, it's going to be impossible to do. So then Phil said he would transcribe my recordings. So I thought, that's easy. I just use my phone, send him the files. And so I thought, this book will be done in 2 months or less. So fantastic. And it took 2 years. So again, like I said, I'm not the brightest guy. Took a while. So, and then editing it was a nightmare because publisher said, you're about 125, 150 pages over. So we had to cut it. And I was like, I'm out. Phil, you cut whatever. And I've never read he interviewed a lot of people I worked with. And I said, carte blanche, say what I'm the biggest asshole, or I was a good guy, or whatever, he's the biggest jerk. You can say whatever you want. I won't edit a word of it. So just tell them that, and that will have nothing to do with it. I haven't read those. And I've heard they're all good, but I haven't read them just in case somebody made some comment that I'm like, that bastard, I should have edited that.
So the editor, the publisher capped the length of the book.
Yes.
Instead, it wasn't just here's what, as much as I want to tell. They like pulled it back. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I don't know how the publishing industry works at all. So
that's right. Said it was just too many pages. It would be too expensive and whatnot. And a lot of time. Sorry, are you there? Okay.
yeah.
And it was the publisher, not the editor. And she had an attorney who was an editor. But there were things that happened. And sometimes when Phil would transcribe, if he didn't understand a word or some sentence, he would just modify. Like, I'm always busting him about, he had me saying something about copious tears. And I went, there's no way in my entire life I've ever said copious tears. And a gun to my head, that would not fall out of my mouth.
Yeah.
So I had to examine everything, and sometimes I didn't have to. What I said, I would have him ask him to go back to the original recording and fix it, and then I would still have to do it. It took a lot. It was painstaking to try to get it. I wanted it in my words, and I wanted to read as a book from beginning to end, and so did he. I wanted it to have a climax at the end of the book, or some kind of culmination of. When you're reading through, you get to a point where, okay, wow, that was kind of cool. Yeah. I didn't want it to just be a series of stories that just never went anywhere.
Right.
So it was, we worked hard to have it flow as a book. It was interesting to read, even though some of the stories wouldn't be interesting to some people who maybe didn't know a band like Attila. Only the hardcore metal people go, oh, I wondered about that band.
Yeah.
Good. Another good album, Rolling Thunder.
Yeah.
Good band.
There it is.
Yeah, man.
Carl, we want to be, cognizant of your time and stuff, but I did want to ask you, as I'm a big fan of Rhett Forrester, what it was, working on Out of the Darkness and then Gone with the Wind, like, if you could say a little bit about that time period and those records.
Yeah, no problem. I'm actually doing well. So working Out of the Darkness, which was a title I gave Jack, and also Gone with the Wind with Rhett. But when he came in, sorry, my phone is ringing. when Rhett came in, I had known of Rhett, and I knew he was great, but Rhett was a bona fide rock star. Parts, any suggestions I had, he just was on it like that. Rhett's downfall was drugs. That was Rhett's. He liked to drink, he liked to do drugs, and ultimately that's why he died early. I remember him telling me a story about how he was on a flight and he'd been in a club or a drug deal gone wrong, and he got stabbed and his lung was punctured and collapsed, and they had to end the flight early, emergency landing. And so, he kind of lived it, that whole lifestyle. But
Wait a minute, he got stabbed on a plane?
He got stabbed prior to the plane, and he was so messed
okay.
up. He didn't even know.
It's like,
oh,
that's
holy
crazy.
shit.
Wow.
Punctured his lung.
Wow.
So
Wow.
so you're messed up and you're even. But I had heard in Texas, like they told us in the clubs, a lot of times if you're talking to some woman, somebody will go by and they'll just stick you. Yeah.
Okay.
So be careful. Yeah. And I almost went to, when we ever travel, we all like to sightsee in the lodge, and none of us did drugs or drank. And so we would be bowling or golfing because Gary and Dave would be golfers. And one night after a Judas Priest show in El Paso, I'm like, we could go to Mexico. And there's this really attractive woman in a red dress. All I remember is a shiny dress. She was attractive. And she said, I'll take you to Mexico. We can go tonight. We'll leave right now. We'll go to Mexico. And so I'm like, oh, I can say I've been to Mexico. That's so cool. And as I'm leaving the club, I feel the road crew grab me by each arm and they go, Carl, not a good idea. So I've made it to Mexico, but I didn't make it to Mexico that night. Attractive lady in a red dress. Oh my God. I was hypnotized.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man. Wow. Yeah.
So anyway,
that out of the Darkness album, so good, man. Yeah.
It really is. And Paul Kane is the guy. Jack is the riff master. Jack is such a great player for solos. His rhythm guitar playing, it's average. It's not as great. His lead playing is fantastic. His melodies, he's a songwriter. But Paul Kane pulled that all together, and that was fantastic. And just his rhythm. And so when we wound up Jack was going to do Virgin Steel in Paris. We want to do Le Bourget, Breaking Sound Festival. That I was saying Neil Turbin went. And so we all go, and Jack leaves us in the hotel, and he's going to visit his family in the south of France. So he drops us off, and he's gone in 20 minutes, and we're like, we don't even have a hotel room. Who's taking care of us? So they became really good friends, Danny and Christian Karabish, that I've been back to their celebration of life parties and, whatever. I've flown over to Paris for that. They're there. They don't really speak English. Combien, I'm like, how much for gum? I take $100 in francs, and I walk in and get a pack of gum. And I just had to trust until I learned the money that they gave me the right change for my pack of gum. So Jack left us there. So everybody was furious, and nobody spoke French, and the people we were with didn't really speak English very well.
Right.
But I became the de facto translator because I spoke slowly and tried to understand them, and they were more comfortable trying to speak English to me, because apparently what I learned was a lot of times people they all speak English in France or in Europe, but they get mocked by Americans sometimes. And so they're reluctant to speak English because they don't want to get laughed at. And they're like, screw you, you're in our country, speak French. And so I became that. And so we did Le Bourget, the Breaking Sound Festival. And Rhett was furious at Jack because we were supposed to record an album and Jack was gone. And so I suggested that, why don't you just do a solo album? So that's how that came about.
Yeah, I remember reading something about Jack was starting a new version of Virgin Steel featuring Rhett Forrester. I remember reading that in the magazines, and then it came out, it was Jack's solo record.
That's a great album, though. I agree. I think it's But Jack Jack has done a lot of good albums. Giles Lavery, who's acted as my manager for the last few years, he sang and produced that album. And Jack is still coming up with some great stuff. Like he is the
Yes,
riff master.
He is.
Yeah.
Carl, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, and it's going to bring us up to, real time right now, I guess you could say. But you've been in the real estate business for the better part of 20 years now. So how did that come about? How did you bridge the gap between, metal drummer to real estate agent? And do you have any clients that seek you out simply because it's you and they want you to sell them a house?
I've had a couple, and at first they didn't reveal that, and then as time went on, then they suddenly, and I would see them like, oh, they don't really want to see a house. They don't want to buy a house. They just want to meet me. But that's only been twice. So I started. My parents had an apartment house, and so I kind of grew up knowing about that. But then after my mother died, I decided I would move to Cortland, and I bought a 3-unit, and then there was a little house in back, which I called the servants' quarter because I had to do everything. And so I had that, and that was kind of what got me started in buying real estate. And then I bought a bunch of real estate, and I finally found an agent because all the other agents would show you crap you didn't want to see. I found a really good agent, and so I bought probably 7 properties from him. And so he said one day, he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "Well, get your license and come in with me." So I got my license, and we went in and we started. They were doing foreclosure, so he and Shannon, we worked together, and for at least 3 or 4 years. And I was doing foreclosures, which I had a B&E kit, breaking and entering kit, where I would have to go on the foreclosures. You have to rekey them, so you just break into these houses and hope you don't get arrested. And so that's how I got into it. And then now it's been 14 years. This is my 13th year, 13th or 14th year selling real estate as a licensed real estate agent.
Wow.
And and listen, I'd love to sell you a house. What are you looking for? Where are you looking? How many bedrooms? How many bedrooms? No. It's like, to me, sometimes I'd liken it to being a used car salesman. But I love real estate, and I have made a lot of very good friends from it because you're spending a lot of time with clients, and if you like them, then
Sure.
you become friends.
Definitely.
So, and I enjoy that aspect of it. I don't enjoy people who. It's really the New Yorkers and the New Jersey people, and I'm saying that because of the ones they call and they'll say, "Oh, the house is 150,000. Tell them I'll give them 75,000. I'll bring cash right now." I'm like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And then I always tell them, and they get really pissed. I say, I don't think I'm your agent. You might want to call someone else.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how I got into it. I had my little slave quarters behind my 3-unit, and then I sold it, and I thought, wow, I just made some money on this. And the light went off in my head. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, Carl, go ahead. No, you go right ahead, Carl.
No, I was just saying that real estate, it affords you can have people cover for you. It allowed me to take off, go to Europe, go to South America, Japan, whatever. And it's something that you can do at your own pace, or you can just have somebody else do it. And you answer the phone when you're on the road when you can. So it's an easy gig in terms of that. Still being
I would imagine it kind of just flows with your lifestyle a little bit, just kind of rolls with you. That's cool.
Yeah.
Carl, we definitely want to make sure we are respectful of your time. But if any of the guys on the panel have any other questions they'd like to ask you, please go right ahead, guys.
I'll jump in.
Silence.
No, you've made some.
I was waiting to see if one of the other guys would go because
you made
some don't worry about the time. I'm good.
You made some very interesting choices in your cover tunes. You Better Run, Hanging On. I just wonder what was the thought process behind when you pick a cover tune? How do you decide on it? How do you flesh it out to make it sound like you?
Well, I think first of all, we sound like us. David has a style and he's not like a major vocalist, like a power vocalist. So it's going to sound like David, who's the identity of the Rods, no matter what he does. And then the way we've chosen them, I'm a huge Rascals fan, Young Rascals, and Dino Denali I always loved, my favorite drummers. So You Better Run was something that I suggested we do. And it's interesting, we always laugh about this because our tour manager, George Baruti, rest in peace, um, he was working with Pat Benatar. So we did the song, and 6 months later, she came out with her version, which was a better arrangement for sure, and a better, Pat Benatar singing it. But that's, I chose that, and then we were in England recording the Wild Dogs album, and I was playing. We were just knocking it around. I was playing "Keep Me Hanging On the piano, and because I was a big Fudge fan, and of course, Carmine Appice. And so that's when we were looking for a cover, and that's how we decided to do that. And the other songs, Nothing Going On in the City and Ace in the Hole, they were given to us by Mike Bone, who was our A&R guy. So I'm trying to think, Mountain. I'm a huge Mountain fan, so I suggested Mountain, only so I could do the cowbell. Donk, donk,
Yeah.
And then Communication Breakdown again. I believe I recommended that because that was a perfect song for us, I thought.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Zeppelin fan, so I wish I could blame one of these covers on somebody else.
I love the covers. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
David was just talking about we probably could have chosen a better cover song than Keep Me Hanging On, but I think it's a cool version. It just wasn't maybe the right song for that album.
Yeah.
So what can we expect from you and any of your projects? So what's the forecast of the next year for you? What can we expect?
This new album with Billy Sheehan and John Hahn and Mike Santaciero, that project will see light of day. We've already had a label offer us, but we're waiting. Billy wants to wait as well. It was his suggestion. Let's hold off signing. The other is the Rods now have some projects in the works. David has just written, what did he call it? The new metal classic. I think that's what he said. No, metal masterpiece, he said. So I'll be hearing that this Wednesday. When I stop on my way to Syracuse gig. And he'll be playing the metal masterpiece for me then. And we're going to try to get that done quickly and get that released. I want us to do a compilation with the best of the Rods, like a huge compilation. And so we're putting that together. I don't know how soon it will come out. It's ready to go. I have a new Thrasher has been remixed, transferred from the original 2-inch, and then mixed by Nate Horton, and did a fantastic job. And it doesn't sound like the original. It really shows how great the musicians were on that album. So I'm thrilled about that. So that's going to come out at some point soon. And then I have been saving all these years, and now it's time to release it. We have Live at the Marquee. I remember going in the room, like the Marquee is attached to a studio, and I remember going over and setting things up, and I've had those recordings now. Nice. So it's pretty cool. So, that's right after the Iron Maiden show where we sold out the Marquee, which was a big deal for me because growing up, it was always 10 years after the Marquee, the Who, like all these bands that I thought were great, they played the Marquee. So I was in that dressing room with all these signatures of these bands I idolized. Like, oh my God. And then David wrote the Rods on it, which I'm sure was painted over immediately, but that was so cool to do.
That's awesome.
Killer,
a lot of history there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Look forward to that. That'll be really good. I got that box set that came out.
Yes.
With a bunch of live recordings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got some stuff from 81 and 82 all through like 2010. So some cool.
Yeah,
live.
That was really cool. That's the only album that I have regrets about it. I've never done it. I have retained all of our licensing, our publishing, and our masters. That's the only one I signed off on to actually sell. So we no longer have any control. It will never revert back to us, whereas all of our other things do. But I thought it was a really cool collection. I thought they did a great job with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not their fault that I was an idiot and sign that one away, but it reminded me to never do it again. So that's a plus.
Yeah, you live and learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
God bless you for all this. Look at all the CDs you have behind you.
This is what makes me happy, man. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their happy place for sure. You as well,
Yeah.
Carl. You got some good looking albums behind you too, man.
Yeah.
I have let's see if
Wall
I
of
can
fame
turn
back
this.
there,
Yeah.
man.
That's
Wall of
outstanding.
I have so many on the floor. We're just laughing about that all lined on the floor. I can't, like CDs and some albums. I just can't. I know where to put them. So this
Carl,
wall behind me, they'll
do
all
you
start
keep
going up there. Sorry, go ahead.
do you kind of keep your ear to the ground and keep up with like what younger bands and newer bands? You like rely go back to the stuff you've loved for all these years, or like what are you into when you listen to music
No,
now?
I'm always listening to new bands. There's that band Metallica is doing some good stuff, and so I listen to all
Yeah,
that new
I
stuff.
think they're good places.
No,
They
I
have a
do. I listen
chance.
to a lot. I listen to a lot, but sometimes you don't know who it is. Like if they don't announce it, and if it doesn't show up on the radio in the car, like it's tough. But I hear about bands. YouTube. My friends send me things, and I'm always watching and listening. So some of my friends who are older, they'll say, "Oh, there's nothing good out anymore. It all sucks." I'm like, "What are you listening to?" Like, and they'll like. It seems like they've stopped in the '70s, the '80s, the '90s.
Yeah.
Like each person has their own period of time when they don't. There's nothing better since 2000. There's been no good music, and like, okay, you're not listening, but okay, I'm not going to try to convince you there is.
You're not looking
Yeah.
hard enough. It's out there.
And it's
Yeah.
out there. It's more
out
today
there.
than ever. You got
I
access today better than any way in the past.
Yeah, I agree. And the musicianship is just crazy. Like drummers using heel toe, and guitarists ever since it was it Sweden, way those guitarists who started, I don't know when, '90s, they started shredding like crazy and all the
Yeah.
Dune or whatever. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
taken to another level. And then of course this adding female vocalists and just some great musicians, and I love the spin on the music. So. And a lot of it is I couldn't play it. Without the heel toe thing, there's no way you can play double bass that fast. And I can play it on my practice pads, but it would be very embarrassing live.
I hear you.
Well, Carl, we want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. This has been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure
Seriously.
we could probably talk for hours on end, and maybe we'll have a part 2 somewhere
That's
down
good.
the
I'd
road.
love that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would love
Yeah,
that.
man.
That'd be
Thank you
great.
so much.
And I can't wait for you to hear the new Rod stuff and the new. We don't have a name for this album, the new album with everyone. We've tossed names around. So if you guys have a name, let me know something unusual. And anymore now, you have to have 3 names to even have a chance at getting.
Seriously.
We'll get
Carl,
people to put that in the comments. They'll light it up. They got
Yes.
ideas.
Citrus,
Where-
hubcap, dementia.
Where can people go to on were you guys all on the socials? Like where can people go to like see the latest news about the band and all your projects?
Rods.com, always a good place to go. All the merch is there as well. And then I have several Facebook pages. So I keep those pretty much updated. And then TikTok as well and X. So, and it's the bane of my existence trying to update everyone every day.
It's a lot. You have
It's
to
a
have
lot.
like 16 of them anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotta have that secretary. That's what they're for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm working on that actually. So anyway, thank you guys so much, and I apologize for postponing this a couple of times, but
Not
I'm
at
glad we
all.
did it
All
tonight
good.
because I feel great now. So whatever
Good.
Cool.
mojo you guys had, now I feel good. So
It's the
That's
power
good.
of
That's
metal,
awesome.
Carl.
Yes.
It
That's-
is.
Yeah, man.
exactly. Yeah.
Heavy
Okay.
dose of metal.
Carl, please keep us posted on anything that might be coming up. We'd be happy to push it out to the masses for you. And again, very grateful for having you join us today. It was an absolute
Absolutely.
blast.
Well, thank you guys. I really enjoyed it. Some amazing questions. So it was fun to talk. And I
Awesome.
always enjoy talking about me. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
It's great.
And
Tony,
great shirt,
Alex.
by the way.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I got this one. I think I got it in 2014 when I saw you guys.
Mm,
Yep.
cool.
I just
Those are
want to
rare now.
thank
Those
Alex and
sold out.
Tony for joining us again today too.
Hey,
Yeah,
thanks for
Yeah,
having us,
great to
Good
see
guys.
you
time.
guys too.
Good time.
Yeah,
So,
man.
we'll see everybody
Oh,
again on
we're
the
here
next
for the
episode.
sake. Yeah, man, for the sake of heaviness. Hell yeah.
We'll
All
see
right.
everybody
Thank you,
soon.
guys. Take care.
Take care,
Take care,
Carl.
Carl.
Thank you.
Thanks.